On the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, E.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Mars X3D. This is your buddy Dave, and if this is a new experience for you, if you've never done X3D before, you will find links to tutorials in the description below. A very simple technique. I had a note from one fella saying how it makes his head hurt and how he puts the phone right up against his eyes and he can't. Folks, look at the tutorials. Just look at the tutorials. It's very simple. You're already seeing in 3D right now. Piece of cake, right? All you have to do is learn to refocus your eyes very slightly, and the tutorials show exactly how to do that. And then it turns your computer, and it's usually better to watch these on a monitor, a computer monitor, or even a flat screen TV. The larger the better, because you see more detail. But if you're going to look at it at the phone, make sure the phone, your phone is 2 feet away from your face at least. Don't put your nose on the phone. Anyway, well, I wanted to let you know that our very last live hang of the season is coming up Tuesday, the 25th, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm taking the summer off to do all those things that I haven't been able to catch up with. I have a lot of work to do up north. And we'll be restarting the live hangs in early September. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And I'm also going to be taking it a bit easier this summer and be more present as a family guy. And so I'll still be turning out episodes. May not be every week. But that'll give me a chance to really round up some powerful and impactful anomalies for you. I wanted to remind you that my friend Alan over at Mars, the Second Genesis, has his channel back up. And there is a tutorial on there on how to download and process the PDS images from the Analyst Notebook. These are the IMG and DAT files. And it's a wonderful tutorial to have, wonderful knowledge to have. Most image people will not share that knowledge. So thank you, Alan, for making it available to the average Joe out there. Anyway, enough talk. Let's dive into the anomalies for this week's episode of The Evidence. Let's start with a strange offering from my friend, Jim West. He reached all the way back to one of Spirit's early panoramas in a G-Pan by Neil Spence. We've got that Martian bluestone scattered in the foreground, and that's just where we're headed. So, what's a perfect, almost cartoon-like mousehole doing in this rock? And it's a rock maybe 2 feet, maybe a little bit more across. So we're talking something much larger than a mouse, aren't we? What I like is that nicely beveled edge with the little rim around it, almost like that was done on purpose. We don't see any signs of activity in the sand, although I doubt the stone in the entrance represents much of an obstacle to a critter seeking shelter. Is this a remnant of a small house? Bird feeder, perhaps. Or maybe it's just part of a whimsical yard ornament, with a gnome standing outside the entrance in a pointy red cap. But of course the gnome is long gone, either buried in the radioactive sand or stolen by cruel and heartless vandals. If you were there right this moment, would you stick your hand inside this hole? This context view from Curiosity 711 contains a classic anomaly. They're at the very top center, what some people have called an egghead or even a Nephilim skull. I'm not even going on to bother with that today because it's been argued to death, and I'm inclined to let that dog sleep. Instead, we're going beyond Egghead to the item inside the green target. Now, some of you new to the channel will immediately dismiss this as just being a rock. And of course, you may be right. But for all you splendid weirdos out there who've been with me for a while, you know who you are. Let's do one of our famous inventories, starting on the left side. That 90-degree cutout with 3 finger-like appendages crawling out of it is one of those non-fractal flags that always tell me things are not what they appear. And I know it's kind of blurry, but that diagonal line of holes slanting upward from the cutout seems to be an awfully strange kind of erosion to my way of thinking. Whether the markings on the face have any meaning or not, I don't know. Probably just erosion, except for one thing. See that half wheel emerging from the right side at about the 2 o'clock position? That seems kind of unrock-like to me. And finally, there's that bluish egg-shaped appendage at the lower right. It seems like it's attached to the main object rather than standing alone. Now I know some of you will jump on the object just to the right and tell me it's a skull. It could be, but for now, we'll let that one slide. I was poking around in Neil Spence's GMAC of 2932, the Mousehole area, and ran across what seemed to me to be rather notable erosion. I like that non-committal word, erosion, because, frankly, that's all it may be, though it could possibly be much more than that. This first one intrigued me with its one clear 90-degree angle at the top, along with all the other angles and parallel markings. I really can't tell if this is a carving, a machine remnant, or just some amazing erosion. Then I ran across this next one. Remember that half wheel we saw in Beyond Egghead? Well, here's another one popping out the top side of whatever this is. This whole piece looks much more machine-like to me, and if you haven't already noticed, there's that loop sticking up in the middle of the closest edge. Looks like the hasp on a padlock, doesn't it? And see that shadow that looks like a comb in the upper right? I sure wish we had a better angle to see what's causing it. But we'll just have to be satisfied with this piece of notable erosion for now. My buddy Laszlo shared one with me this week from Nev's GPAN of 1419. As far as I know, he's the only one that pointed this one out. And this is on a GPAN that's had a lot of traffic. The first thing that crossed my mind is that this is something hatching out of an egg. It even seems to have a leg outside the shell, like it was backing out. But that perfect half shell on the right, with all that stuff coming out on the left side, that's just weird. And it certainly doesn't conform to our reasonable expectations of a well-behaved rock. Also, notice the triangular piece right next to it. Is that part of the whole assembly or just another fluke? We'll wrap things up today with another find by Laszlo Shabaliks. And as you look at the target area inside the box, it really doesn't look like there's much going on there. But you can also tell from the context view that whatever this is, it's quite large. This is one of those anomalies that's almost impossible to see in 2D, so I'm impressed that Laszlo even picked it out. But as you can see, with the 3D, things get a lot more clear. This appears to be a semi-cylindrical habitat of some kind. The markings seem just on the verge of making sense, but that could just be pareidolia. But where it makes an abrupt change from lighter to darker stone, it's pretty hard to ignore that porthole catching the sunlight right in the center of that section. And as that section bends towards the camera, we see numerous knobs and what might be tubing all along the bottom. And look again where the light stone joins the dark stone. Do you see the evenly spaced light and dark? Almost like some kind of tenon or biscuit joint, like you'd find in woodworking. You'll notice also that the end facing us is slightly dished out. If it weren't for that porthole, I'd probably just ignore this one. But a hole that large, that perfect, and with such a distinctly formed rim, not only shouts intelligent agency, but could represent any number of functions, from viewing to a pass-through for industrial pipes to, maybe even an up-in-the-air entrance for something that flies. Will we ever know the truth? Probably not in my lifetime, though possibly in yours. Well, that's it for this week's episode, and thanks so much to our patrons and contributors for helping us to remain ad-free. Thank you. And if you saw something you liked, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It helps me to know whether to continue this work. And while you're at it, you may as well hit the subscribe button and click the bell. Our last live hang of the season is Tuesday, May 25th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And I look forward to welcoming you into our gathering of exceptional weirdos at that time. Until then, this is your buddy Dave, over at Mars X3D. Be well.